My name is Tenzin Tsundue, and I did my presentation on Aztec philosophy. And the first thing I looked at was what the ancient Aztec people viewed as a good life, and most of this revolved around the concept of rootedness. And living a rooted life is the same as living a true and fulfilling life. And in order to do that, you have to achieve balance in four separate levels. The first of which was psyche, and to find the balance in your psyche was to find the balance between your heart, which represented desires, and your face, which represented the seat of judgment, so what you viewed as right or wrong. And the second level you have to achieve rootedness was in your character, and this was done mainly through physical exercises, and the most prevalent one was yoga. And the third level was community, and in order to find rootedness there, you just had to fulfill your community role, your social role. Uh, and for this one, I have a quote from an ancient Aztec text, and it reads, "The good middle-aged man is a doer, a worker, agile, active, solicitous. The bad middle-aged man is lazy, negligent, slothful, indolent, sluggish, idle, languid, a lump of flesh." And this basically shows how the ancient Aztec people kind of viewed that, or how important they thought the community was. So if you were someone who did your job and supported the community with your actions, you were seen as someone who was to look up to, versus someone who was a little lazy, they slacked off a little. Uh, just like the quote read, they were just seen as a lump of flesh, so nothing good. And the fourth level you have to find rootedness was within nature, and this was done through what they called Sochi Inquitil, and this basically translates to flower and song, which is just another form of poetry, and they would do this by all the village elderly and the wise men. They'd write their poems, and then they would have these meetings where they would share them. And the poems were usually about Earth and the nature of human existence. And yeah, so these were the four levels that you had to reach rootedness in order to lead a rooted life. Virtuous action. So the ancient Aztec also had a lot of strict rules on what they viewed as virtuous action, and uh, so most of this depended on circumstances, social position, and social roles. And by circumstances, I mean like whether you're at some sort of uh, wedding or like party versus like if you were at like a sacred ritual, like you were expected to behave certainly for either cases. And for social positions, if you were a nobleman or if you were someone from like the royal family, you were also expected to behave a certain way. Versus if you were like a commoner, they didn't really care how you behave. But like if you followed these like social rules, your actions were seen as virtuous. And the last but not least, social roles. This is kind of similar to what I spoke about in the previous slide with finding rootedness within your community. So it's just fulfilling your role and supporting your community however you can. And this is mainly done through your job. So if you're like a feather maker or like a army man, if you did your job well, it was seen as a virtuous act because you helped the community. Okay, slippery earth. So this was a concept that I read a lot about in my research, and this basically meant this was basically the reason for why the ancient Aztec people wanted to find rootedness so bad, and they basically believed that like the Earth is unpredictable, and much like human life, it's got ups and downs, and us humans, we are very we're not perfect. The Aztecs believe that we are very prone to falls, prone to errors, prone to failing, and this is why we needed to live a rooted life in order to kind of just like forget, not forget about these failings, but kind of just diminish what they meant. And next slide deals with the advantages and disadvantages of this philosophy. And for the advantages, the first one I saw were that they viewed being imperfect as natural. So this was a good thing. You don't want to be part of a philosophy that's views like being perfect as like a good thing, because that's just not realistic. And the second reason why, the second advantage that I thought this philosophy had was it also accounts for different factors of life. I liked how they talked about community. Like as human, we are social creatures, so like how well you do in your community kind of just relates to how happy and fulfilling your life is. And as for disadvantages, the only one that I could really think of was just how vague some of the ancient writings seemed, or the translated. Uh, for example, there was this uh, right here. So yeah, most of it said like how to live a good life, and then to do that, the ancient text read, you just have to live excellently, and like that seemed kind of vague to me. And other than that, yeah, that was my presentation, and thank you.